Welcome to the deep dive. Ever wonder how those AI writing tools, manage to generate text? Sometimes it feels brilliant, sometimes a bit off.
Or occasionally completely out there, right?
Exactly. So today we're kind of cracking open the code, so to speak. We want to understand the fascinating controls behind how large language models, LLMs, actually produce the words we see.
Yeah, forget the magic idea. We're looking at the actual mechanics.
And we've got some pretty detailed explanations of key concepts here.
That's right. And our mission really is to take that technical stuff and just make it crystal clear for you.
We want to demystify terms like temperature, top eight.
And show you how these seemingly small tweaks can have a huge impact on what the models actually generate.
And understanding this isn't just for techies, is it?
Not at all. It gives you a real sense of what these tools can do, and maybe just as importantly, what their limitations are.
Exactly. Think of this as your shortcut, your guide to the levers and pulleys inside these incredible writing machines. So where should we start? Temperature.
Let's start with temperature. Yeah. In the world of LLMs, temperature is basically like a dial. It controls how predictable or surprising the AI's writing is going to be.
A dial for predictability. How does it do that?
Well, it works by adjusting the probabilities, the likelihood of all the different words the model might choose next.
So it fiddles with the chances of each word appearing.
Exactly. You can think of it as tweaking the AI's internal confidence level for each potential word.
Okay, a confidence dial. So what happens if we turn that way down? Set the temperature really low, like say zero point 0.2.
Okay, low temperature. The AI becomes very sure of itself in a way. It overwhelmingly favors the words it thinks are the absolute most likely to come next.
So it gets very focused.
Very focused, yes.
Yeah.
And factually consistent usually. Which is great when you need reliable information like answering specific questions or summarizing something accurately.
Right. Makes sense for accuracy-focused tasks.
It's like the AI saying, look, I'm pretty sure this is the right word, and I'm sticking to it.
But does that super focus have downsides? I imagine it might get a bit repetitive.
It definitely can. When the AI is only considering the most probable options, the output can become, well, a bit boring maybe.
Less creative.
Yeah, it might lack that spark of creativity or sound repetitive because it's not taking many linguistic chances. It's playing it safe.
Okay, so if the model was finishing the sentence, the weather is very at low temperature, it's almost certainly going to pick sunny or maybe nice.
Probably sunny if that's the highest probability. Even if other words like pleasant or rainy were also quite likely in the training data, the low temperature just amplifies the probability of the top choice way, way up.
Making the others almost impossible to pick.
Exactly. Very cautious. Very predictable.
All right. Now, what if we crank that dial the other way? High temperature, say 1.0, or even higher, like 2.0.
That's when things get potentially a bit wilder, more unpredictable.
Wilder how?
A high temperature makes the AI less certain, you could say. It becomes more willing to pick words that it initially thought were less likely.
So it introduces more randomness.
A lot more randomness, yeah.
Yeah.
This can actually lead to surprisingly creative outputs, maybe more diverse, sometimes even funny stuff.
Yeah.
Good for brainstorming, maybe. Or writing fiction.
Okay, so it might stumble upon something interesting.
It might. It's like the AI is thinking, maybe something totally unexpected would work here.
But unexpected isn't always good, right? I can see that going wrong.
Oh, absolutely. The higher the temperature, the greater the risk that the AI generates text that just doesn't make sense or veers off topic completely.
It's exploring too much.
Kind of. It's exploring all sorts of linguistic paths, even the ones that probably lead nowhere sensible.
So back to the weather is very... With high temperature, we might see weird stuff like loud or purple, even if those were incredibly unlikely to start with.
You could.
Yeah.
The probabilities for all the potential next words get flattened out, become much more even. So those really low probability kind of out there options get a genuine shot at being picked.
Adventurous, but risky.
Definitely. Higher risk of nonsense or just incoherence.
Okay, so what about the middle ground, like a default setting, maybe 0.7 or close to 1.0?
Yeah, that range around 0.7 to 1.0 is often considered the sweet spot.
The sweet spot. Why?
It aims for a balance. You get some predictability, some coherence, but also a touch of creativity. The original probabilities aren't skewed quite as drastically as with very low or very high temperatures.
So it allows for some variation without going completely off the rails.
Exactly. In our weather as very example, sunny might still be the most likely, but pleasant or cloudy or even rainy would have a significant chance of being chosen too.
A good compromise, then? Coherent but not boring.
Precisely. It strives for text that's readable and makes sense, but might still offer a bit of flair or originality.
Yeah.
The AI is reasonably confident, but, still open to a few other decent options.
Okay, got it. Temperature is the creativity or maybe the randomness dial. Low means cautious, high means wild.
You got it.
Now, what about this top K thing? That sounds different.
It is different. Top K sampling takes another angle on controlling the output. Instead of messing with the probabilities themselves, Top K puts a hard limit on the number of word choices the AI considers.
A limit on the number. How does that work in practice?
Okay, so when the AI needs to pick the next word, it first calculates the probability for every possible word in its vocabulary. Then it ranks them most likely to least likely.
Right.
Top K then says, okay, AI, you can only choose your next word from the top K words on that list. Let's say K is 10. It only looks at the 10 most probable words.
And ignores everything else, even if number 11 is almost as likely as number 10.
Yep, ignores everything below the K-12 position. Then, from within that top K group, it randomly picks the next word, usually still respecting their original relative probabilities.
Interesting. So if K was, say, 3 for the cat sat on the...
Right. Maybe the top probabilities are mat, 60%, sofa, 20%, window, 10%, floor, 5%, etc. With K3, only mat, sofa, and window are even considered.
Floor is out, even though it's plausible.
Completely out for that step. The choice will be made only among those top 3, weighted by their 6 to 10 likelihoods.
Okay, I see how that narrows things. What if K is really low, like K1?
K1 is a special case. It's often called greedy decoding.
Greedy.
Because it always picks the single word with the absolute highest probability. No randomness involved at all on the selection stack.
So totally deterministic output.
Exactly. Very predictable, often quite coherent, useful if you need a very focused, on-topic answer, maybe.
But I bet it can sound robotic, right? Always taking the most obvious path.
It definitely can. It might get repetitive or lack variety because it never explores slightly less probable but maybe more interesting options.
Okay, so K1 is maybe too restrictive for creative tasks. What about a moderate K, say K50? Is that common?
Yeah, something like K50 is often a pretty good default. It gives the AI a decent pool of likely options to choose from.
So it balances things.
It tries, yeah. Balances coherence with some diversity. It lets in enough variation to keep the text from sounding too monotonous, but usually keeps things on track.
And a really high K, like K500.
Well, with a higher K, you're giving the AI a much bigger menu to choose from. That can definitely lead to more diverse and sometimes more creative results.
Because it's allowed to consider words that are further down the probability list.
Right. Words that are less probable but maybe still make sense or could lead in an interesting direction. But just like high temperature,
There's a catch.
there's a catch. It increases the risk of picking words that don't quite fit or that lead the text down a less coherent path. Because you might be including words with pretty low probabilities in that top 500 set.
So top K is like putting blinders on the AI, saying only look at these specific top options.
That's a really good analogy, actually. Fixed blinders.
All right. Temperature controls the probability wiggle room. Top K sets a fixed number limit. Now, top A, or nucleus sampling. This sounds even more complex.
It sounds complex, but the idea is actually quite elegant. Top-up, or nucleus sampling, is interesting because it's more dynamic.
Dynamic how?
Instead of picking a fixed number of words like top K picks a set of words based on their cumulative probability.
Cumulative probability. Okay, walk me through that.
Sure. Again, imagine we have our list of possible next words ranked by probability from highest to lowest.
Got it.
We start at the top with the most likely word and look at its probability. Then we add the probability of the second most likely word, then the third, and so on. We keep adding these probabilities together until the running total, the cumulative probability, reaches a certain threshold value that we've set.
Yeah.
That threshold is P.
Ah, the P in top.
Exactly. The set of words you included to reach that threshold, P, forms the nucleus. The AI then randomly picks the next word only from that nucleus.
Let's try an example. The cat sat on the, again, probabilities. Mat, 0.6, sofa, 0.2, window, 0.1, floor, 0.05. And let's say we set P to 0.8.
Okay, P 0.8. We start with mat, probability 0.6. Is that equal 0.8? Okay, and the next one, sofa, 0.2. Cumulative probability is now 0.6 plus 0.2, 0.8.
Which is our threshold P, so we stop.
Please stop right there.
Yeah.
The nucleus contains only mat and sofa. Even though window was the third most likely, it's not included because we already hit our cumulative probability target.
So the AI will choose only between mat and sofa for the next word.
Correct. based on their original relative probabilities within that nucleus.
Okay, I think I see. The size of that nucleus isn't fixed like with top K. It changes, right?
Exactly. That's the key point. If the top word has a really high probability, say zero point 0.9 and p is zero point 0.8, then the nucleus might only contain that one word.
Very focused.
But if the probabilities are more spread out, like 0.3, 0.2, 0.15, 0.1, 0.05, you'd need to include more words in the nucleus to reach that p zero point 0.8 threshold.
So the nucleus gets bigger when the AI is less certain about the top few choices.
Precisely. It adapts. It's like the AI saying, my top picks aren't super dominant this time, so I need to consider a slightly wider set of plausible options to reach my confidence goal P.
That feels smarter somehow than just a fixed number K.
Many people feel that way. It's adaptive to the specific probability distribution at each step of generation.
So what's the effect of different p-values? A low p, like 0.1 or maybe 0.5?
A lower P means you hit that cumulative threshold very quickly, usually with just the top one or two most probable words. So the nucleus is small.
Leading to more focused, deterministic output, like low K.
A very similar effect, yes. More predictable, less random.
And a higher p, say 0.9 or 0.95.
A higher P requires accumulating more probability mass, so the nucleus generally becomes larger. It includes more potential candidates.
Which means more diversity, more creativity.
Generally, yes. It allows for a wider range of possibilities while still ensuring that the chosen set accounts for a large chunk of the total probability. It kind of filters out the really improbable tail end of the distribution.
So it's diverse, but maybe avoids the really weird stuff that high temperature or very high egg might allow.
That's often the goal, yeah. To get diversity while maintaining coherence, by focusing on a set that represents, say, 90% or 95% of the likely outcomes.
What if p is 1.0?
If P in 1.0, you have to keep adding words until the cumulative probability reaches 100%, which means
You include every single possible word.
every single word in the vocabulary, yes. So P 1.0 effectively turns off the nucleus sampling, becomes the same as standard sampling across all possibilities, only influenced by temperature if that's also set.
Okay, so top K is that fixed net size. Top is the adaptive net that catches a certain percentage of the fish, or words.
That's another really good way to picture it. Fixed number versus fixed probability mass.
So thinking about the differences, when would you choose one over the other? You said top often feels more natural.
Yeah, the main difference is that fixed versus dynamic selection. Copcake's fixed number can sometimes feel a bit arbitrary. It might cut off a perfectly reasonable word just because it's K plus 1.
Or it might include some fairly low probability words in the top K if the distribution is very peaky at the top.
Exactly. Top Ryan, by focusing on that cumulative probability, adapts better. If the choice is obvious, one word has very high probability. The nucleus is small. If the choice is uncertain, probabilities are spread out. The nucleus grows to include more viable options.
Which often leads to text that flows a bit more naturally.
That tends to be the consensus, yes. It handles different situations, sharp versus flat probability distributions, more gracefully, many argue.
And how does temperature fit in with these two? Can you use temperature with top K or top P?
Oh, absolutely, and it's very common to do so.
How does that work?
Think of it in stages. First, either top K or top P selects the candidate set of words, the top K or the nucleus P.
Okay, the pool of choices.
Right. Then, temperature is applied to rescale the probabilities within that chosen pool only.
Ah, so it affects the final random draw from the selected candidates.
Precisely. So you could use, say, top up with P 0.9 to get a good coherent set of likely next words, and then apply a slightly higher temperature to encourage more surprising choices from within that good set.
Or use a low temperature to make it stick to the most likely options even within the nucleus.
Exactly. It gives you another layer of fine-tuning the randomness after you've already restricted the initial set of choices.
So they really work together. It's like having, I don't know, separate knobs for focus, top key P, and then flare temperature within that focus.
That's a perfect analogy. They are complementary tools. Most interfaces recommend you adjust either top K key or top cap, though not usually both at the same time,
Why not both?
because they both fundamentally do a similar job restricting the sampling space. Using both can have interacting effects that might be hard to predict or control intuitively. It's usually simpler to pick one method, often top heat, and then tune it with temperature.
Okay, that makes sense. Wow, this has been incredibly clear, much clearer than I expected.
Yeah, glad it helped.
So just to quickly recap for everyone listening, temperature, the randomness or creativity dial, low is safe, high is adventurous.
Right.
Top K sets a hard limit, a fixed number of top candidates to choose from.
Yep, fixed number.
And top, or nucleus sampling, selects candidates dynamically based on reaching a target cumulative probability.
Yeah.
More adaptive.
Exactly. Adaptive based on probability mass.
Understanding these really gives you, a much better insight into how these LLMs actually generate text. It's not just random magic.
Not at all. It's controlled randomness, and these are the main controls we have. Appreciating how they work helps understand why AI text can be so varied and how developers try to steer it.
It really makes you think, doesn't it, about how fine-tuning these settings impacts everything from AI writing assistants to creative content generation.
Huge implications.
hmm
Imagine tailoring these for specific tasks, maybe low temp, high-ish P for factual summaries, high temp, maybe moderate P for brainstorming.
Or maybe a very low K for simple chatbots versus a high P and moderate temp for writing poetry.
Exactly. The possibilities for optimization are fascinating. And that leads to a really interesting thought to leave you with. How might consciously choosing and manipulating these parameters, temperature, top K, top head, not just improve AI output, but actually change how we think about writing, creativity, and even the nature of information itself in the future? Where's the line between tool and collaborator when we control these knobs?
Wow. Okay, that is some serious food for thought. How much control is authorship? Definitely something to ponder. If you, the listener, are intrigued by this, we really encourage you to explore further. This is key to understanding where AI is heading.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.